You can do great things with buses in a mix. There are tons of topics for fascinating video tutorials. In this one, I'd like to show you rather unusual bus processing that gives the sound a unique character and makes mixing much easier. Let's start by listening to the bus signal without processing. There are various instruments, power chord guitars, a range of dark and bright keyboard sounds, and there is also a percussive element on beats 2 and 4 that sounds a bit like anvil strikes in Mordor with lots of reverb. To put it in positive terms, apart from the anvil, everything sounds very legato, full range and powerful. But you could also call it undifferentiated, static and blurry. And the reason for this is the lack of dynamics in the individual sounds. And that makes things really hard for the other instruments in the mix and for us as mixing engineers. All the other elements of the arrangement, in this case drums, bass, acoustic guitar and vocals, can hardly be separated from this static sound carpet covering all audible frequencies. It's the old and well-known problem. If everything is meant to sound huge and powerful all the time, then it usually ends up sounding small and thin. How can we get out of this dilemma? If we don't want to reduce the spectrum of the relevant sounds, we must restructure the musical timeline so that the powerful legato sounds leave more space for the drums and the rest. A traditional way to this is sidechain compression, but I wanted something more spectacular. Let's listen to the whole thing in context. That's how it sounds without bus processing. The frequency spectrum is reasonably balanced, but the dynamics are quite flat. And that's how it sounds with the effect. This adds a lot of energy and even gives the song a unique character. So, what's happening here? It's as simple as that. An automated tremolo, which you can find in pretty much every DAW, is doing its job. In this case, the automation sets the rate to another time value every few beats. Sometimes it's quarter notes, then eighth note triplets, then even speedy 16th note triplets at transitions to the next part to create a dynamic build-up. It almost sounds like a Leslie on steroids. Another interesting fact is that I feed this tremolo bus exclusively through auxiliary sends. This allows me to specify the degree of this dynamic effect for each individual instrument. If the channel fader is set to a low level and the auxiliary send level is quite high, the tremolo effect is rather striking. When I move the fader up and the send down, the effect becomes more subtle. This allows me to choose the right mix for every sound. In this case, I decided to use the sends in the post-fader position. The setup would be slightly different with pre-fader sends, but would have worked as well. The fact that the instruments are no longer fully legato, but are continually interrupted by the effect, makes it much easier to place all the other elements of the arrangement in a coherent way. Give it a try when your mix is not working properly in a crowded arrangement. A tremolo on massive guitar, keyboard and bass sounds create more space and structure for the more delicate sounds. A quarter or an eighth note rate with a moderate dry-wet ratio is usually quite discreet. I do like the more striking triplets though. If you like this tremolo in a bus trick, subscribe to this channel. There will be plenty of practical tips from the studio, promise.